introduction. My name is Zach, and I will be walking you through this class tonight. The purpose of this class is to get people who are familiar with the system but have never ran it as a DM, or individuals who have never touched Roll20, a brief overview into the bare bones essentials of the platform. You're going to be following right alongside me as I create an account, create a game, make maps, make tokens, and basically do everything that we need to do in order to play a game of D&D on the Roll20 platform. My goal is that this is about a 30 to 40 minute video, and we keep it as simple as possible. There's a lot of bells and whistles that you can add to your Roll20 experience that we are not going to cover tonight. My intention is to avoid overwhelming you and to basically trim this down to something that you walk away from and say, I can do this. 100% I can do this. And if we do that tonight, I'm going to feel pretty good. So, without further ado, let's dive into Roll20. Okay, so Roll20.net is where we're headed. And you can, straight off the bat, create an account. There's 3 different types or levels of accounts that you can use here in Roll20. There's a free version, and then there's 2 different paid versions. And we'll talk about those in just a minute. Creating an account takes about 10 seconds. Super easy. And let's talk about those setups, those subscriptions real quick. So, 3 different tiers. You'll see them here. The free version is mainly what we're going to be covering tonight. You can do 99% of what we talk about tonight on the free version, and you can do 100% of what we're going to talk about tonight on the plus version. That's $4.99 a month. If you want to know more about the capabilities of the full capabilities of the platform, you'll want to take our 201 class taught by John Christian. He's excellent, and we'll be having those classes in the coming weeks. The main difference between the free and the plus version at $4.99 is your people can import their characters into your game if it's a paid game. That's a big deal for running smooth games, especially with strangers, like at a con scene. So it's definitely something you're going to want to do, in my opinion. But you can definitely hold off until the days before the con, pay $5 to get the plus for 1 month, and then cancel it as soon as the con's over. That's not going to be an issue. But you can do all your setup, all your maps, all your tokens, everything with the free version in the meantime. And again, that's what we're going to be doing today. So, you make your free version of the account. You're ready to go. You sign in. And now we're going to make a game. So, the home screen will look something like this. All your games will be listed right here on the home screen. You can just click one and launch right into it. We, however, are going to pretend like we are the DM, and we are going to create a brand new game, and we're going to pretend like we're setting up a game for Adventurers League for a virtual con. So that's going to be our intention. We're going to be using Moonshade 1.1, the Moon Adventure, Introductory Adventure, as our test run right here, and it's what we're going to be using to base a lot of this off of. So if you've ever ran the Moonshade Treasure Hunt, this is going to be familiar to you. So, from the home screen, there's a pink button in the center of the screen that says Create New Game. Click that button. It's going to take you to a short questionnaire. The first thing is, it's going to want to know, what are you going to call your game? Now, if you're running an AL mod, I recommend calling this the name of the mod, or the mod's code. So, let's say this is Moon 1-1. Good enough. We don't need to add any tags because we're not making this a game that we want random people on Roll20 to join, so there's no point in tags. The only other thing we need to do on this sheet is choose a character sheet. And of course we're going to select the D&D 5e character sheet. Very important that we do this. Make sure that you got the character sheet selected. This is going to allow your players to import their characters into Roll20 when you have the pro account. Alright, you're ready. Create game. Boom. You are now on the landing page for your campaign. This is what every player that is invited into your campaign is going to see when they first jump in. There's several things that we're going to do right here before we even launch onto the platform. The first is you'll see that right behind the title of our campaign, there's a spot for an image. Go find an image that represents your campaign and just drag and drop it into there. This is going to set a tone for your game, and it adds a little bit of professionalism right from the start. Maybe it showcases a little bit of your own personality. As an example, I just grabbed something that talked about the moonshade and threw that in the back there. So do something like that that your players are going to enjoy. Second thing we're going to do, you're going to only have to do this once. This is one of the very few technical things that we're going to be talking about tonight. Go into the Settings tab, click it. Go to Game Settings, and scroll down to where it says Allow players to import their own characters, and select Yes. Again, this only applies when you've got the Pro account, but you're going to want to do it as soon as you have the Pro account. That way, players that have made characters in the Roll20 platform can just drop them straight in. It's going to save you a ton of time. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, click Save Changes. We're good to go. We don't have to touch anything else there. Go back to your landing page. The only other thing that matters here is we're going to remind people that we're playing D&D 5e. It probably doesn't matter, but you're always going to have that weird one person who forgets what we're playing. Then finally, over on the right, you'll see a purple button that says Invite Players. Click that button. You can invite players by inputting each of their email addresses individually. That's a pain. It's really good if you really want to be specific on who can get into your game, but for a con scene, it's too much. You may have 60 players that all play at different times on this one campaign. And for something like that, you're going to want to share a link. That's this link right below here. You just copy and paste it. Anyone that has that link can join your game. Let me say that again. Anyone who has that link can join your game. So we want to be very careful who gets that link. We want to be very careful that the link that we send goes to this campaign. Make sure that you copy and paste directly. Another point of warning. If you kick a player from this game, which we're not going to go over tonight, but if you had players here, they'd show up right here on the right. You could hover over it. You could kick them from the game. If you did that, that link changes. This link will no longer work because you kicked a player who had that link. Roll20 assumes that you don't want that link to be active anymore, and it resets it. That is a no-go for the con scene. As soon as you kick it, those 16 tables that you have lined up after this one, now all their links are broken. The players can't get into the game, and they're going to be very frustrated. Whatever you do, while you're running a con, while you're running a virtual con, please don't kick any players. We'll go over that a little bit more as we dive in, but just don't do it, all right? There's other ways around it. All right, so we know how to invite players. We're only going to do that when we're ready, once we've got the maps and stuff set up, but that's how you do it. All right, we're good to go. So let's launch this game. It's the pink button here on the left, and that's going to take us to our actual virtual tabletop. Here we are. We have a blank canvas. This is your Chessex mat, so to speak. This is where we're going to be playing D&D. Before we do that, we're going to do our second technical thing. 2 out of 3. Almost there, guys. I hate the technical stuff just as much as you do. We're going to come over here, top right. We're going to click on the settings cog. We're going to change 2 things here. The first thing that we're going to change is we're going to scroll down all the way to where it says chat avatars, and it'll say player video avatar size, and we're going to change that to names only. What you'll see is that down here on the left, you see all my little player avatar and my name beneath it. If we switch it to names only, we get rid of the avatars. That's very important when you've got 6 players and a DM in the same game. All those avatars just take up screen space. Nobody wants that. We just need the names. Then scroll all the way down to where it says video and audio chat options. Right now it's going to say something like WebRTC. Just select it from the drop down and say none. No video, no audio. As soon as you select that, it's going to reset the window, reset the tab, refresh the page, and now you're good to go. You only have to do that once per campaign, and you'll never have to touch that again. But now you're not broadcasting or receiving voice or video into Roll20, which is exactly what we want. And we want that for 2 reasons. The first is that Roll20 is not a great platform for streaming video or audio. It's very buggy, it's very laggy. You're not going to have a great time. So we're going to run it through Discord instead, like we're doing here. And shutting it all off is just the smoothest way to go. Secondly, by turning it off, we ensure that the straggler person that maybe played at your table yesterday, who still has the link to your Roll20 campaign and hops in for some stupid reason, can't interrupt your game. They can hop in and you'll see their little name pop up down here, but they can't chat with audio. They can't have their video sharing. They can't see any of your players. That's another big deal. So just removing the audio and video function ensures that only the people that are in your current Discord uh, server channel are going to be able to communicate with each other and see each other. So, two big reasons why we're getting rid of all voice and video off Roll20. Now we're done with that, though. We've cleared the avatars. Let's talk a little bit about navigating the virtual tabletop. There's four functions that are kind of the big powerhouses of Roll20. The first is really simple. It's right here on the top right, and it's this scroll wheel. If we drag it around, it lets us zoom in and zoom out on the map. Real simple. We don't need to go any further than that. Second thing is the chat box. That's right here, just to the right of that, right in the top menu. There's a little chat bubble box, and that is where we can input text with each other. This is also where all rolls made in Roll20 will pop up. My recommendation is that you don't use this for just chit chat stuff. Enforce that with your players. Make sure that if they want to do chit chat, that they're doing it in Discord. Leave the Roll20 chat for official game content, and that'll make it easier to refer back. Again, if you have your initiative rolls and your to hit rolls and everything in there, you don't want that to be filled up with memes or GIFs or other things like that. So keep it clean, keep it in there. Third out of four is just to the left of the scroll wheel. You'll see a blue square, and that's your page toolbar. If you click it, it drops down a header, and this is where we create multiple maps. So think of it as like different game mats that you can pull out at will for different encounters. So you want a number of mats equal to, or number of pages equal to, the number of gridded locations you're going to throw at your players every adventure. So for the purposes of this, I think I'm going to need 4. And this first one we're going to keep blank just so that there's a landing page for when people enter. You'll notice that there is a red pendant banner that says players on it that we can click and drag. Only the DM can click and drag that from place to place, and whatever one it's dropped onto is going to be the one that your players can see. Now they can see that whenever they are logged in. Even if you're not logged in, if they want to launch into the game, they can see wherever that pendant is. So make sure that you leave that banner where you're fine with your players seeing. Don't put it on something that you're going to be going in and working on and creating some surprises. They're not going to be surprises anymore. Put it on a blank one. Put it on one that has your name on it or a cool image or something at the beginning, and you're good to go. But that is the third big thing about Roll20 is the page toolbar and the different maps that you can create. Finally, the last big piece of Roll20 navigation is the layers function. That's represented by this square over here on the left, top left. If we hover over it, we can see that there are several layers to this map. Think of this like in Photoshop. If any of you are familiar with Photoshop, how you can put different items on different layers and those layers don't interact. Same thing here. We have 3 layers. We have a map and background layer. That's for like static stuff that we're not going to be moving. That's your map. That's trees, things like that. Then we have objects and tokens. That's the opposite. Those are the creatures, the player characters, things like that we're going to be moving all the time. And finally, we're not going to talk about this one much, but there's a GM info overlay layer. This is basically a hidden layer to the players. If you have some monsters that you're going to want to surprise your players with, a way that you can do that is move those monsters onto the GM info overlay layer, and they are hidden to the players, but they're visible to you. And then whenever you want to surprise, they jump out and surprise your players, you just simply move those monsters from the overlay into the objects and tokens layer. They're seen by everybody. Super easy. We'll get into that a little bit more here in a little bit. That's your navigation tools. If you know those 4 tools, you can probably stumble your way through the rest of this. So we're rocking and rolling. So we know our tools. Let's build a map. This is something that's going to take you 2 minutes, and it immediately turns the blank Chessex map into something gorgeous. And there's no way that you could do it this quickly on any actual board that or table that you would have at a convention. So we're running Moon 1-1 Part 1, and there are 2 encounters that take place here. The first one is goblins and axe beaks in a field of tall grass. So let's build that one first. And for this one, let's just use assets that are free and readily available in Roll20. Let's see if we can do that. So just to the left of the chat bubbles, right here in the top right, one over, you'll see Art Library. If we click that, it gives us a search option. We can search anything we want to, and for this purposes, we're going to build the goblin encounter, so we want like a grassy field, I think. So we're just going to type in field. All right, so we have plenty of options here. I found one that I like. I want to make sure that I'm editing the map and background layer. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to click and drag the grass that I like onto the map. And I'm just going to resize it to whatever size I like. Now this might not be perfect. Sometimes this grass maybe looks like it's a little bit too big, but you know what? Your players aren't going to care. It's way better than a blank map, and it's going to take you 30 seconds. We're just copying and pasting several on there. I think that's a big enough map, especially for level 1. They're not going to be running around a lot. I think we're good. Because we're here, and because it's super easy, even though the adventure doesn't call for it, let's add some other accessories to this field. Let's add a rock, a big rock. I'm sure that Roll20 has some rocks for us. Perfect. Here's a rock that I like. It kind of looks like it's blending in with the grass. That's kind of cool. I like that. Let's drop it in. Let's drop it in right there. Sounds good. Give the goblin something to hide behind. You know what? Let's give him some cover too. Let's get some trees in here. I'm sure that we can find some trees. We're just scrolling through the free assets. Yours is going to look exactly like mine. If you do this search, you're going to find the same things that I find. Oh, here's a great tree. Here's another great tree. Perfect. Let's size them up a bit. Let's have a tree hanging out here by the rock. Give it some cover. And maybe another one over here. And then let's copy those and drop them over here. All right, cool. Let's zoom in a bit. Use our zoom tool. Looks awesome. And now we're inspired, right? We're going to have goblins here. Maybe they're doing something. What could they be doing? They could be digging a pit trap. So let's look for a hole that we like. And we might have to search for pit or hole or trap or something to find an image that we like. But, oh, here's a great one right here. Drag and drop that. Boom. Boom. Size it up. Awesome. We have a pit trap in the making. Ready to go. I'm happy. We're all happy. Got an awesome pit trap. All right, so we've got our encounter here. It took 2 minutes, and it looks amazing. We're ready for tokens whenever we need tokens. That's how to build an absolutely free map in Roll20. They'll take you seconds. But some of us like to find our own maps, pre-made maps, so we don't even have to do this much work. In that case, we're going to go to Google. So let's build our Sahuagin encounter, our beach encounter, by finding a map on Google. Go to a new page, and oops, I will move that back to there. So our players are not seeing our goblin encounter. They're still seeing the white one. And let's pop over to a new, fresh one. And here we go. We're ready for our Sahuagin beach encounter. So let's go to Google. And let's search for beach maps D&D. Scroll through here. Let's see. Ooh, I like this one right here. That's cool. Yeah, I like that it's not gridded. That's a great thing because we've already got a grid on Roll20. So let's grab that one. I'm just going to drag it onto my desktop, and then I'm going to drag it onto Roll20. Super easy. All right. So dragged it onto my desktop, dragged it into Roll20. It's going to upload. It's going to upload directly onto the map layer because that's we're still in that. It's a bigger file, which is also great. It's not going to be pixelated. All right. And we're just going to click and drag it to size exactly how we want it to size. All right. I like that right there. I'm happy. Look, that took even less time, and it looks gorgeous. Perfect. We're done. That being said, that map was easy because it didn't have a grid. And so it just sat underneath the grid on Roll20. We're good to go. But you will find that a lot of the maps on Google are already gridded. So let's do a gridded map. All right, here's one. Perfect. It's another big file. Just let it upload. And you're going to see right away. Okay, let's zoom in. Okay, so you could probably see here that the grid on the map does not match the grid on Roll20. That's a problem because your players are going to get confused. They're going to get frustrated at which grid their tokens are actually on. So we're going to fix this. And it's really easy, but this is the third and final technical thing that we're going to be doing tonight. All right? Sit with me through this. Buckle in. It's going to take 1 minute, and then we're home free, all right? All right, so we got this map ready to go. Right-click it and go to Advanced. Tell Roll20 it's a drawing. What that's going to do is it's going to stop it from aligning to grid, and it's going to let you move it wherever you want without it snapping to the grid that it thinks is there. That's first step. Second step, right-click it. Go to Advanced again. Say Align to Grid. It's going to bring up a box, an instruction box, but basically that box is going to tell you Roll20 is asking for you to tell it what a 3x3 grid looks like on the image. So all you're going to do is you're going to click and drag a box of a 3x3 grid on the image and release. All right, so it's saying, hey, it looks like your grid is 35 pixels by 35 pixels. That's great. That's a square. We want a square. Align to grid. Boom. Now the squares on our map are the same size as the squares in Roll20. So now all we have to do is click and drag to where the two sets of squares perfectly align. Let's zoom out and make sure it worked. It absolutely did. We're good to go. We've got our map. It looks great. We can drop tokens on there. So that's three ways to make a map. All of them take at most a couple minutes, and all three of them turned into a gorgeous map. We've got our gridded map, we've got our non-gridded map, and we've got our Roll20 custom map. Easy peasy. But now we need some creatures on this map. Let's do the goblin one here. Let's talk about tokens. We're nearly to the point where we could play D&D, but we need some tokens to move around the board. So the first thing that we're going to need, we're going to go back to this art library right here in Roll20, right where we found all these assets, and we're going to type search for goblins. Boom. All right, perfect. So there's a whole bunch of free options of goblins. You may or may not like what you find, but I've also purchased some token packs, and so I've got some perfect goblins here ready to drop in. Before I drop them in, I want to make sure that I'm editing on the objects and tokens layer. Boom. Now I can just click and drag the token onto the map. All right, we want 4 goblins, don't we? So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're good to go. And then we also want an axe beak. They got an axe beak with them. An axe beak is a large creature, so we want to make sure that we resize it to be a large space. And we'll tuck it over here out of the way somewhere. We're good to go. All right, so we have our goblins. Couple little tricks. If you click on a token, it'll pop up these 5 circles. The top circles are basically just there for you to keep track of things if you don't want to keep track of things on pen and paper. Up to you if you use them. You can keep track of damage, you can keep track of hit points, you can keep track of AC, whatever you want, or you could just leave them blank and run it off paper and you're good to go. The settings cog, if you click on that, that's really for player settings, but if you wanted to name each goblin, this is a place where you could do that. And then the bottom circle is a toggle, and if you select it, it brings up a list of icons. And these icons are really cool because they are great ways to remind you of conditions imposed on a creature. So as an example, if this goblin has slow cast on it, we could put this snail. Boom. You can see it's dropped right onto the goblin token. And now I, as the DM, and all of my players remember that this goblin is the one that was slowed. So those are handy. I also like these colored circles up here because when I have creatures like goblins that all look the same, I can give each goblin a different colored circle very quickly. And this allows me and the players to call out specific goblins in a moment. So now my wizard who's casting Fireball can say, I want to shoot the green goblin with all 3 magic missiles. Great. Or I could say, oh, the red goblin looks a little bit tougher than the others and is wielding a pair of scimitars or something like that. And they know which one I'm talking about, even though the icons are all the same. So this encounter is great. Super easy. That's the beauty of pre-made token packs, is that they make setting up things like this a breeze. But token packs cost money. So let's do something that is free. And again, you might have found what you wanted by searching right here in the art assets. That's entirely possible. But let's say that you can't. And let's look for some Sahuagins. So let's hop over to our beach map. And if we type in Sahuagin here into our art library, you're not going to find anything. I've got some from my art tokens, but if you scroll down through here, there's nothing exciting for Sahuagins. Most of them don't even look like a Sahuagin. So, back to Google. If we search Sahuagin token D&D, a whole bunch of pictures of Sahuagins pop up. I really like this one. It's square, it's not circle. John is going to get into in Roll20 201 how to create your own tokens really simply, really quickly. But this will work. This is just a square. It's got a great picture of Sahuagin. It'll work just fine. So I'm going to copy that, put it on my desktop, pop back into Roll20, and just click and drag it onto the map. Let it upload. All right, we've got our image. Scale it down. Scale it down. Copy and paste. We got our Sahuagins ready to go. Super easy. No issues. So we've got our character tokens, we've got our monster tokens in a couple different ways. We could play D&D now, but we really need some players. And so let's talk a little bit about getting a player into your game. Specifically putting a token on the board for that player. So if they can import their characters, if they have a character made in Roll20, if they import it, it's going to be right here on this third button on the top right that says Journal. You'll see a character name, and you'll just click and drag that character onto the board, and it'll drop a token there for it. It's a perfect system, and it takes the work off of you as a dungeon master for it to already be set up. But let's say they haven't imported their character, and you need to make a token for them. So let's say that we're going to have a dwarf. Alright, so here's a great dwarf token. We'll just drop it on here. Dwarf Forge Cleric, the perfect dwarf. Alright, this is going to be... John is going to play this dwarf, and he's named the dwarf after himself. So the dwarf's name is John. We want to assign this token to the players, because right now, nobody besides us can move any of these tokens. Nobody besides the DM. We need to fix that. So we're going to click on the token. We're going to go to the settings cog. And if the character was imported, we could click this drop down here and just select the character's name. If it's not imported, then we can name the character. We're going to name it John. We're going to show the nameplate, so that'll help us remember. And we're going to say that it's controlled by, if John's name was here, we'd select it, but it's not, so we'll select Zach. Now, John can run his own character. We'll just save the changes. Now you'll see that underneath the token, it says John. So everybody, including you, can remember who that character is. And John, the player, can move this token wherever he wants, and you can as well. No other players can move that token. That's it. You have tokens. You have monsters. You have maps. We can 100% play D&D now, can't we? You guys can make character sheets, pen and paper character sheets at home. You can, they can use pen and paper. They can tell you the results. They can roll actual physical dice and just input tell you what the results are. We could play right now. So this is the point where if you feel super overwhelmed and you don't think you can handle anything else tonight, just call it quits right here and you're good to go. This is a good learning spot. And anything that we talk about from here on out is going to be very simple. I think are very handy tools, but they're non-essentials. So if you feel good here, then you're awesome and you're doing great. If you feel like this is enough, it's enough. Learn the other stuff later. You can go back and watch this video at some other point and catch up on what we're about to cover. But there's a few remaining tools that I really want to help you with and that I think are super valuable. So we're going to take about 10 minutes and we're going to cover the last of these tools. Okay? All right, let's cover some tools. First tool, we've covered up in the top right, we've covered the chat button. We've covered the art library button. We've covered the journal button and how that's where you can add characters into the game. But there's a button that says jukebox and it has a little musical note on it. And if we click that, basically this is going to let us add audio to this game. If you're anything like me, I've never ran audio at a in-person game. I didn't see the point. But I 100% see the point here on Roll20. Here's the difference. When you're sitting around a table, there are some social contracts that are typically enforced. First off, you're not sitting in front of a computer. Your kids probably aren't running around in the same room. There's you have far less distractions when you're sitting around. You might still have your phone. You might still be browsing through that. But by and large, there's not a ton of distractions for you. Not true when you're playing online. Your players have a computer literally right in front of them that they're looking at anyways. It's super easy to tab over, scroll through Facebook or Twitter or whatever, or get on their phone, or look just past the computer at their kids running around or their dog or whatever. A lot of distractions. Jukeboxes fill dead space and subconsciously keep the players on task. I don't know all the stuff behind it, but it works. You'll see a dramatic increase in player immersion and player participation by having a jukebox with music going, and it's really easy to do. There's a ton of free music already on Roll20, so there's no reason not to. So all you need to do is click the jukebox button, click Manage Audio. Once you're to this screen, select Tracks and Tabletop Audio, and you're going to see hundreds of like 5 to 10 minute ambient noise tracks here. And we're going to find some that fit perfectly with this adventure. So we need one for the grassy fields. We need one for a beach. And then I like to have one for combat to kind of set the tone. That's the other thing that the track does. It helps sets the tone of your adventure. So let's do the ocean one first as we're here. Let's see if we get lucky and there's a track titled Ocean. Oh, here we go. Open Ocean. Perfect. I'm sure it's fine. You could listen to a little sample of it here, but I'm sure it's great. Actually, I have it set up. You guys should be able to hear it. Let's go ahead and just see if it's great. You guys could hear that, right? A little bit of ocean, kind of waves, the tide rolling in. You hear little splashes. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Okay. Then let's see. We want fields. If we search for fields, let's see what comes up. Croatian field, that's kind of a sci-fi thing. It's not really what we're after. Field of Heroes, let's listen to that. Apologize if that was super loud, but you heard a lot of drums and horns and things, and it's upbeat. That sounds more like combat music to me, and we wanted that anyway, so let's just go ahead and add that to the game. Let me turn the volume down here and play you another little snippet. just so you know what we're getting at. Yeah, you can probably hear that in the background. Just some dramatic music to kind of get the heart beating a little bit faster in your players, and it'll help you get that energy going into a combat. Cool. So field didn't get us what we wanted though for our grasslands. Let's just, you know what? Let's type in plains. Maybe we'll get lucky there. Yep, windswept plains. That's going to be perfect. So we've got something for our goblin encounter. We've got something for our Sahuagin encounter, those two maps, and we've got something for our combat. So we're good to go. Close out of the jukebox. We have our 3 tracks ready to go. If we went to chat and then pop back into the jukebox, it's those 3 tracks are going to be there. We can organize them however we want. I like to keep the track set at about a quarter volume. That's typically about right. And go ahead and click the loop icon on all 3. That way, when they're over, they're not over. It'll just restart. As long as you hit play and don't hit stop, it's going to keep playing. So we're on this ocean map. John is fighting 3 Sahuagin. He's in trouble. We'll play the ocean music. We'll play the Field of Heroes music. And we're ready for a real fight. Both of those tracks are playing at the same time. So now we have this energetic combat music that has that swell of the tide behind it. And it works really well. And again, it took us 2 minutes. So good to go. That's that. Okay. Jukebox done. Last thing, we're going to cover a few tools. We've covered most, if not all, the buttons here on the top right. Let's cover the rest of the buttons on the bottom, on the top left, and we're going to close this sucker out. We already have we know what a clicker is up at the top. That's not a big deal. We've already covered the layer button. The paintbrush is your Microsoft Paint. It's basically just freehand drawing. You can do that for like quick shapes and things. If you want to draw a quick treasure chest, just draw a square. If you want to notate that it's a treasure chest, you can put text there and say, oh, this is a chest, whatever. We won't go into that. You maybe use it once every other game. Then there's a microscope. This is another way to zoom in and zoom out. You'll never use it. Then there's a ruler. Rulers are super handy. If I have the ruler selected, me as a DM or my players both have access to a ruler. We can measure how far we are from one thing to another. So your wizard always can tell on their own if they're within range to cast a fireball or whatever. The rogue can determine if they have enough movement to get close to something, all without you having, as the DM, to mediate that. Super handy. The eye is for Fog of War. We're not going to cover that tonight. The initiative tracker is this clock. We'll do a simplified version of the initiative tracker now. John will go into more of this next time. Initiative tracker can be complicated, but there's a really simplified way of using it. Simply click on the clock, have your players roll initiative. It'll pop up in the chat. Click the blue settings wheel down here in the bottom left. And now you can give a new initiative for all the players on the field. So we need John on there, add, and we need the Sahuagin on there, add. You'll see right over here on the left, we see John, and we see the Sahuagin, and John rolled a 12, or an 11, Sahuagin's rolled a 13, and then we can say sort, descending, we're good to go. So we can run this whole encounter knowing the initiatives, and when we're ready to clear the encounter, we click the settings cog again, click the red button that says remove all turns, clear, and now we are set up for the next one. Super easy, right? Last button, almost at the end. Very bottom, there's a dice. This is your dice roller for this is your very, very simple dice roller. You can run pen, paper, sheets at home, and instead of running physical dice, you can just click this dice roller. So if I want to roll a d20, just click on d20. If I want to roll 46, I just go over to the d6 column and click on 46. It'll roll them all here in chat and tell you the results. If you want to add a modifier and you don't just want to do it in your head, you can click on the advanced dice roller down at the bottom and say you want to roll 4d6 and you want to add 6. How about that? And then roll, and it'll do all the math for you. And there's also a history of your last rolls, so if you need to re-roll something, it's right there. So, that's the roller. Okay, so at this point, we've played a game of Dungeons & Dragons on Roll20. When we're ready to end this game, when we're ready to exit as a player or as a DM, we click the settings cog back up here in the top right. Very top of that menu is exit game. Simply click the exit game button and it'll take you to a thank you page, and then you can click back to your Roll20 landing page and you're done. That's as simple as it is. There's plenty of bells and whistles that we did not cover tonight. There's buttons that we didn't cover tonight. There's macros that we didn't cover tonight. There's API that we didn't cover tonight. But we don't need any of those things. Again, you are in charge of your table. I have 7 years on this platform. And what you saw tonight is most of the time how I run games. I don't use a lot of the bells and whistles. I don't find that I need them. And because I don't feel like I need them, and I'm confident in that, my players don't miss them. They enjoy the game. What we did tonight is just as immersive and just as complex as running at a table. So don't be ashamed if you don't know all the bells and whistles of Roll20. You don't need to. Your players probably don't know all the bells and whistles either. So keep that in mind. Couple things for the con scene. First and foremost, when you end your session, make sure that you ask your players to leave the game within 5 to 10 minutes. That'll allow you to have a fresh, clean start for the next group. It'll allow you to move the monster tokens back where they need to go, erase the player tokens off the board, and it'll also ensure that you don't have 30 player names taking up a ton of space down at the bottom, because if you have 30 players that don't exit, guess what? You have 30 names down at the bottom. It doesn't get any easier. They don't automatically leave. They've got to exit the game. They've got to close the window, something to get out of there. So make sure that you ask them to leave as soon as you can after the mod has been ran. All right. That's Roll20 101, Introduction to the System. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me on Discord in the DM's chat server. I'm happy to answer any Roll20 questions that you might have there. We're also going to be running a couple of other classes here in the coming weeks. We're going to have a Roll20 201 class that's taught by John Christian. If you want to know the bells and whistles, that's a great class to go to. John is a whiz kid for that sort of thing, and you're going to learn something there, I guarantee it. We're also going to be running this class again. If you want a refresher, you can definitely check that out. We're also going to be running, I think, a character creation class. So if you want an overview on the different ways that players can bring characters into the game, create character sheets, whatever, for a Roll20 game, we'll go over that. And then finally, we're going to do a D&D Beyond class. And that class is probably only going to be about 15 minutes. But D&D Beyond has some excellent ways that it can integrate into the Roll20 platform and into Discord. So we're going to help you have a better grasp of that site and the ways that your players are going to be using it and the ways that you can use it as a DM. So look for those classes in the coming weeks leading up to Gen Con and beyond. I'm going to sit here for a moment and make sure that I haven't missed anything. I think that's it. I really hope that you found this video helpful. Again, feel free to reach out and have fun running your games.